Steve Bold.
Ready?
I got a pretty good flair to what his finish was on. Good. Come on, look at it here. That's looking pretty nice.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the meeting of the Board of Building Regulation Examiners and Appeals dated December 6, 2012. Call a roll call, please. Call a roll, or just like who's it? Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Steele? Here. Mr. Straight? Mr. Padine?
Here.
Ms. O'Donnell? Here. Mr. Burnham?
Here.
Mr. Michelson is not here. Mr. Gray is not here, and neither is Mr. Looney or Mr. Feller, so Mr. Merchant?
Here.
Mr. Hawkinson?
Here.
Mr. Field?
Here.
And Chair Bowman.
Here.
Okay,
We have quorum.
we do.
I would like to ask everybody to please silence your cell phones. I would like to welcome Royal Field as a new member of the board. Welcome aboard. Thanks. Jump in and help us out as you can. Serena, would you like to introduce your guest, please?
Wanted to introduce everybody. This is our exchange student, Taya Shewer. She is attending Service High School, and as part of her government class, she has to attend a public meeting and write about it, so I've invited her to attend ours. Hi.
I guess we should also note we have Ross Nofsinger, Rick Thornton from Building Safety, and two in the back.
My name is Scott Torson. My name is Luke Torson. I'm actually doing this for government class too, for public meetings.
Welcome. We have an agenda before us. If it's acceptable, I'll take a motion to accept the agenda.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Green and Mr. Steele. Any adjustments to be made by on the agenda? Hearing none, call for vote. We accept the agenda. Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? We have an agenda. Thank you. We also have 2 sets of meeting minutes to approve. We can either do them separately or in mass, depending upon the wishes of the individuals. Mr. Steele?
I'd be bold. I move to approve the minutes of July 31st, August 8th, and September 12th.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Comments or discussions? None? Not even a spelling error?
It was all said.
Call for vote then. Approve, all those who said, please say aye. Aye. What's the opposite? I missed it. Opposed, that's it. Opposed. Opposed is the word I'm looking for. Any opposed? Any abstentions? And that carries, so we have minutes. Parent requests or public hearings. Will you be making any presentations tonight, or just here to observe tonight?
We're here to observe.
I kind of figured so.
We'll try to be difficult.
Yes.
I had one question, just to the format. I know we're dealing with our recommendations to the assembly of the NEC under new business.
Correct.
Historically, when the body has kind of acted on forwarding the documents, that was usually through a public hearing process. Now, maybe that's poor memory on my part, but I think that's the case. I don't take exception to how it's ordered. I'm just maybe questioning, was this noticed to the public that we would be doing this action?
It was?
Good.
It was, when this came out, I put this on the notice and sent it out that day that I asked for a meeting, or Sharon asked for a meeting. So,
And have you received any public comment?
nothing.
Have you heard of anything, Mr. Sargent? No. So,
November 21st was the day I advertised it.
Great, I just wanted to make sure that if there had been noticing. Appreciate it.
we didn't have any unfinished business, so we're into new business. And new business is to review the local amendments to the 2011 edition of the National Electrical Code. This document is before us. We don't have a simple number on that. Unless there's a draft Anchorage ordinance to the Assembly, notice from the mayor, and an Exhibit A that would be the local amendments, and we also have an attachment, an Exhibit B, that is the members of the Code Adoption Committee. And do we have a presentation from staff?
Yes.
Yes.
And that would be, you know, like you mentioned a minute ago, we really didn't have much action from the public. We sent out our notices for joining the committees and for anybody that wanted to make any amendments. And there was very little action. So this year was really, this code cycle was really basically the same one we had before. Only two little changes on there is we added some types of wiring method back in that we had previously deleted. And then we had cleaned up the section on the ventilation and automotive repair shops, cleaning that up a little bit. Other than that, the only thing added to that was an interim amendment from the NEC itself, applying to hot tubs on the outside of houses. And everything else is just carried over forward and updated as far as the code sections we're moving around. And that was our amendments. The only thing that I really had nice to talk about was that new arc bulb device and receptacles, and that actually came through in the NEC itself, which was adopted by the state. We don't modify it, so it didn't come through as an amendment. But it was an improvement that I hope will help the remodel people especially that have been dealing with electrical panel boards and arc bulb devices, trying to fit them into old panel boards and things like that. So I put that in there just so we have something nice to say. Other than that, so I don't have much to report on.
Will you elaborate a little bit on what, the first one that you mentioned, that you put back in something that you had deleted? Was this an amendment that deleted a provision and we've taken that amendment out, so we're back to?
We put some of the wire methods back, 5118, to tell you what type of wiring method and what constituted equipment grounding conductor. And there was a list of, I think there was 10 wiring methods, you know, like a ground wire, conduit, and all those. So when we first did that, we took out some methods that we weren't sure of, such as, let's see, I think it was the copper side cables and things like that. And in the time since, I think Tom Looney had done some looking up and researching on it and found that they were perfectly good, not liable to be damaged easily. And cable tray, that was the other one. And put those back in, you know, as there didn't seem to be a problem with them. The rest of them remain out.
Thank you. Any additional from Ross?
I think that in regards to art faults, it'd probably be really helpful for everyone here, Rick, if we got 3 significant periods of time to probably explain to them, and that's where we're at currently with art faults between now and January 1, when this gets adopted. What will be the requirements between January 1, 2013 and January 1, 2014? And then after January 1, 2014, that was another date that was noted in the amendments. If you could kind of explain that.
Okay, those weren't actually in the amendments, those were in the...
Body of the code.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's in the body of the code. What that is now, I'm sure most of you folks that have been dealing with residential know that art fault is provided for most of a house now. It's basically every place that you don't have a GFI, and that's all in the living rooms, hallways, and all that kind of stuff. What's new is they have a device out that takes the place of receptacle. It's just like a GFI receptacle, and that can provide the arc fault protection. So what they've done was they allowed you to put that as the first device on the circuit, and then wire to that circuit with a piece of MC cable or something that's approved as an equipment grounding conductor, and you can use that to provide your arc fault protection. And that'll give you arc fault protection for parallel faults on the load side and series protection on the line side. And then you have the approved equipment grounding means to give that additional protection on the line side. So that's the new thing that the code has provided that's effective immediately. January 1st of 2014, 2014, right. You're going to be required, when you replace a receptacle in the house, you're going to be required to provide an arc fault receptacle as its replacement. Which is to say that technically, if you go over there in your living room and take out one of the old receptacles, you're required to put in the arc fault one. It's also going to be required to be tamper-proof, which they make now, tamper-proof and arc fault. That's going to be kind of spendy. I think right now the cost I've been hearing is about $25 opposed to $1 or less, you know. How often will that really happen? I don't know, because we don't really go out and inspect those. I would imagine if you were doing a house with a remodel and replacing receptacles, you'd simply put one, just like with a GFI, at the front of the circuit and protect everything downstream. So it's hard to quantify that cost. And then if we're not involved, I doubt if it really gets changed to an arc fault. You know. So that's the 2 changes that comes up. That's where we're at with that.
Is there, associated with that, I mean, if a person's doing it in the home, there's, like you say, no inspection, but is the industry and the stores that sell the outlets starting to stock their shelves differently in support of that, or would there be that move? Or?
Not as yet. I think, I'm hearing that there is, Crescent is carrying them now, but we checked it over others and they're not carrying them, and most of the contractors are ordering them direct at this time. This is a brand new thing that just came out. We actually listed them, I guess about 5 years ago. But the code didn't really provide a way for them to use them. The manufacturer simply didn't build them. And then they made that adjustment where you could use them, and now they're available. And I'm sure the price will be going down, probably about the same as the GFI. Of course, Skip knows all about it.
And so this solves the problem with having to put an arc fault breaker in an existing panel, or and then you can't do that, and then you have to upgrade the panel. And
Yeah, it should. Say you have an old Fisher-Matic, you could actually put the new arc fault receptacle adjacent or down by the floor or something, and you feed down to it, and you pick up your circuit and go out of there. There's a lot of possibilities about that. So, yeah, that should help a lot with that problem. Problem we're having is a lot of the panel boards didn't actually accept arc fault breakers. And you go in there and you do extensive wiring, but you have capacity, and in order to provide that protection, sometimes you'd actually have to change out the panel board. And this ought to alleviate that situation a lot.
Mr. Fredine?
Clarification after January 2014, will the breaker still meet the requirements? I mean, is it just basically you need one of these devices in the circuit?
Yeah.
It's not every, so after 2014, you can still just do the breaker, you don't have to worry about any receptacles
Yeah,
now.
so provide both methods.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I would like to ask, in here it states that the Anchorage Local Amendments 2000 NEC are focused on environmental conditions by providing head bolt outlets, mitigating frost heat damage, cold weather, ventilation of hazardous area, and similar concerns that the 2008 NEC Local Amendments had also taken into account. So if I were to read the amendments here, I would understand what you're saying, what they're saying here, Rick.
Sure, I can give you a basic, yeah, we can do that. The hazardous locations question with like automotive repair shops, you used to be able to not make it a hazardous area by ventilating it, but what we found out was a lot of dealers were turning off ventilation in the wintertime because it was so cold. And, well, there you go. So that was actually asked for by Ron Watts a number of years ago, and we put it in there. The part about frost heaving, well, our electrical services here in town are with seal tight to prevent them from being rammed up into the bottom of the meter enclosures, which they used to get quite a bit. And that's been pretty effective. Let's see, what else? Conduits across rooftops, when they get covered up with snow, and people were tearing those up right and left. So we toughened those up for rigid conduit.
Okay, that's good.
Questions?
Thanks.
That kind of a thing.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yes, Ms. O'Donnell.
Somebody mentioned something about hot tubs, but I haven't seen hot tubs in this. Is that covered in this summary?
The hot tub one?
Yeah.
Yes, right at the back of the amendments, there is under bonding, 684 bonding. That's the interim amendment that was put in place by the code committee. They realized after they had created the code book and everything, that was actually too stringent. And they put out an amendment saying that it was with these exceptions. Well, what I was concerned about was there was a lot of people wouldn't know that was there because they'd already bought their code books. So we went ahead and put it in there. We wouldn't really call it an amendment as such for us, but it was my way of getting it out there so everybody would know that that exception was there.
Any other questions?
I have one more.
Mr. Fredine?
I had asked one of our senior electrical engineers to go through the ordinances and the amendments and ask, and apologize as mechanical. I really don't know what I'm asking this question about, but I'll put it out there because this is what he asked me. He said, was there a discussion in the committee regarding coordination of generators for existing buildings? He said that was been an issue in the past, and if that's more of a, I believe having to coordinate all the circuits and the capacity of the generator and how difficult that is on an existing facility, having to go backwards. And sometimes there are request for alternate means and methods of not having to go into that. Chapter 7 of the NEC is what it's referring to.
There's two places where you could deal with some coordination. One would be the overcurrent coordination for the fault current, and engineers have kind of focused on that. And, well, better talk with Tom Mooney about that one, because that's an engineer thing. I'm really not qualified, because it gets down to how fast things react to the fault currents and all that. The other part that might be considered coordination is just the capacity of the generator compared to what the building might pull. For a while there, we were having people putting optional systems in with automatic transfer switches that would be overloaded the minute you turned on because the range was on and all that stuff, and the generator was simply too small to carry it. So, I think it was last code cycle, they put a section in that required automatic transfer switches, optional systems to be supplied to match the loads that are going to be there in your house. So that could have been what they were doing, either one of those.
But it sounds like it'll just continue to be a policy thing to where we would, if there's an issue with a specific project and the difficulty of being able to achieve that ability to go into an existing building and identify all the loads that has been remodeled and not documented over 40 years, that we could go back and ask for ordinance requests, or not an ordinance request, variance requests and having to
Yeah,
go
the
into.
engineers, well, they don't really get the engineer in the house. It's more like, we just go by the simple, go to Mike Holt or something, and use one of their programs to determine the load on those, and just try to match them up. Actually, the new generators that come out are pretty sweet. You know, they come with load shed and all that, and you can pretty well, like I put a 10 kW on my house, and I got a generator from Home Depot, and it came with 2 load shed devices, where if it's at the range and all that's on, it'll shut them off, so I can run my house on the 10 kW with full transfer switch. So industry's kind of helped out in that direction.
Thank you. Any other questions? Call for motion.
Move to, Mr. Stillwater.
Go
Well, you have a better verbiage from him. Move to approve forwarding on the ordinance recommended amendments for the 2011 NEC to the Assembly for approval.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Steele, got a second. Discussions?
I'll just say that it appears appropriate, and I want to thank everyone for working on moving these amendments forward.
Back up a little bit, Mr. Thornton here. We have this summary of economic effects note here, which is basically a blank form. Can you explain that a little bit?
Okay, what was that last part of your statement about the big bunch of zeros there?
Well, this doesn't have any cost to it, so it's,
Okay, well, to our amendments, the new amendments were actually no different than the old ones. So should I go back to and say that last year's amendments or start from scratch? There was no new economic effect from these new amendments.
I might be able to clarify a little bit too here. It's a standard form that has to go with every ordinance to the Assembly. So the first part of it's kind of like economic effects in-house on the municipalities. It costs more money for us to enforce this new code. Do we need more resources? And we don't. There's no cost to the municipality to adopt the new code. So that's why there's nothing on the top. down the bottom, he tried to quantify the costs on the private sector. And the example he gave was these arc fault receptacles and stuff, which would be really hard to quantify too.
Thank you. Other discussion? I guess we're at a vote already.
He's writing his motion.
As I should have done to
We'll
start.
vote by hand. Okay.
Mr. Field?
Yes?
Mr. Field?
Mr. Field?
Sounded like Steve. Is that a person on this other end, right next to me that thought the same?
Yay?
Yay.
Mr. Merson?
Yeah, I was in trouble.
Mr. Brigham? Mr. Terry?
Yes.
Mr. Fradine?
Yes.
Ms. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkinson?
Yes.
And Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Approved.
That was quite quick and painless.
Any opposed?
No opposed, no abstentions for the roll call. Next item on the agenda is reports. Let me start with any from the board. Any reports to offer? None, as I expect. Mr. Nossinger.
Okay, yes, staff reports. It's that time of the year, the amount of work coming into the municipality dropped off drastically in November. Thank God. So this is the time that we get to catch up on all the stuff that didn't get done during the year. And the big thing this year is the code committees. As you're aware, the 2012 code committees, we're right in the middle, right in the process of forming the committees and holding the kickoff meetings. We've already had the kickoff meeting for the IBC non-structural and for the energy code. And then tomorrow, we'll have the kickoff meeting for the IBC structural and the uniform plumbing code. And then next week, I believe we got a couple meetings scheduled, and then the week after that, whatever's not done, we'll get it done within the next 2 weeks, the kickoff meetings for the various committees. So, any questions on that process, or?
As I understand it, the goal is adopting the codes through the assembly approximately January 2014?
Correct.
Okay. What is turnaround time presently for commercial and for residential applications first round?
You know, it's changed abruptly. Structurally, we would have caught up probably 3 weeks ago, but we had some people go to the national code hearings down in Portland, and we've had some illnesses. So they're just getting caught up right now, so probably new structural submittals that come in right now are probably in that 3 to 4 week range. Mechanical, he's reviewing stuff within 1 day of it coming in. Electrical was kind of in the same boat, things were getting reviewed within a week, but then David went and had knee surgery, so now electrical is probably getting closer to a week and a half out. And we got Don Crafts redoing electrical reviews to help keep that moving. Architectural stuff, we've got one big project that's been in here for a while, but other than that, they're getting to stuff in the 2 to 3 week range. And there's some nice big projects that are going to be coming our way. There's going to be a Bass Pro, or Pro Bass, or whatever. Bass Pro. That's going to go into Glen Square. I think it's going in where the 3 businesses are located. You have the Famous Footwear and whatnot. And they're hoping to have that open by June, so that's a pretty ambitious schedule. And then, yeah. I think Lynn's working on that. You guys got that, didn't you?
Got that one.
And that's a two-phase project. They're going to do a tenant improvement to get it opened, and then they're going to do a substantial addition onto the building to add stuff. And then Cabela's is coming in, I think in February, and they're going to go in South Anchorage by the Target store. And that's a big box, 30,000 square foot deal. UA Engineering Building should come in around February. That'll be a big job, so. Commercial-wise, this year, we were down a bit. You know, the number of commercial permits that came in were down a little bit, and the commercial valuation was down a bit in government. Residential picked up substantially kind of in June, July. We had a really busy residential July, August, September. And just because of residential, we're above last year in valuation year to date. You know, not by much, but we are.
Did you address residential review earlier?
Into residential review? Yeah, we're under 10 days in terms of turning around single-family homes.
So Ross, what about fire, traffic, zoning, public works? You know, I notice it's been like 4 years since I've worked in the municipality of Anchorage, so I haven't, but I've noticed that you've gone to 3 sets of drawings instead of 2, which is something that I actually started to do before I ended up going out into the valley. So how do the review of those particular elements affect how structural, mechanical, and electrical, architectural get reviewed and the timing of their reviews? Does a drawing get to fire? They get their own, right? It stays with them?
Well, we do take in 3 sets of plans for commercial projects,
Right.
and we pretty much have done that since I've been here, that I can recall. Residential is where we take in 2. Sometimes on the bigger jobs, people volunteer to give us 4 or 5 sets because they're concerned that, you know, structural takes 3 weeks to review it themselves. They don't want the plan sitting on their desk for however long. But that generally hasn't been a problem. There's just so many projects in, so much stuff being reviewed that we really don't have too much of a problem with people fighting over the drawings too much. Yeah, and generally I'd say traffic and fire and zoning and stormwater and all those people probably get their reviews done before structural. Yeah, and whatnot, so.
So is it advantageous to
Submit
bring in
4
4
sets?
sets?
It probably depends on the project, you know, probably it would be more so the bigger and more complex the job is. You know, like these, you've been involved with some really big, complicated jobs, so on those, yeah, it probably would be advantageous to have a 4 set.
Thanks.
Mr. Ferdine?
Has anyone utilized the latest ordinance on bypassing the muni and having a structural and/or architectural licensed person do the review for residential?
So we had one house come in, a full design, I think go together with Colony, and Sean Broyles did the design. He's a really solid residential designer. And I think Schneider did the review, and they're a really solid structural engineering firm, so, you know, we weren't worried about it at all. We thought, you know, this thing's in really good shape. And we came in and we went right through the system pretty easily, and it was under construction, and then I heard this rumor from one of our inspectors, just an interesting side note, probably shouldn't even talk about this, but it's one of these things where, you know, they're putting in the foundation, forming it up, and the owner figures out, this garage isn't big enough for my pickup truck. You know, we need to pump out the foundation. So, all right, change order time, and the builder went back to his designer, and it took him X amount of time, probably, to redesign it. And then what we heard is that the structural engineer who did the review, all of a sudden, it's a big commercial firm, but they just don't, you walk in the door, they just don't jump and get on your job. And so, last we heard, he'd been waiting like 3 weeks or something to get the structural approved, all the while he was tinting and heating because of this extremely cold weather. So, and that was probably a review that we could have walked through in maybe a day or 2. So, kind of an interesting side note. And then we had one deck come in, and this deck was a tough one because when it came in, we've been having like a plan reviewer just look at it to make sure that they have the drawings, they have the calculations match the drawings. Okay, I'm not going to review it, take it in, and stamp it, accept it, and put it through the system. Well, as soon as he looked at it, he could see that the deck wasn't tied back into the house per code. And then he's like, all right, what do I do with this? You know, and so I wasn't around, so Sharon called down to legal and said, all right, we've seen an obvious deficiency with it, what do we do with it? And legal was like, oh, well, take it in and let the inspectors deal with it. So we took it in and let the inspectors deal with it, and the contractor was in just the other day, and it's been a month or two, and I haven't heard anything from him. You know, this thing's going to blow up, so I'm kind of wondering what's happened. And I asked him, you know, where's this deck at? He goes, oh, we framed it all up and everything. The owner wants to put down the deck boards himself. So it's one of these things now where it's sitting there all framed, waiting for the owner, whenever he gets to it, to put the deck boards down. And then they're going to call for the final inspection, and then the inspector's going to go out, and we expect it might get ugly at that point, but we'll just have to see how that goes.
So was the builder notified that he had some deficiencies?
No, we didn't. We didn't notify him. It should have been obvious to him.
I thought when they went out for external review, that the meeting was supposed to review that and make sure everything was fine. So by not doing that and turning it over to the inspector, isn't the homeowner going to incur additional costs they shouldn't?
Yeah, the homeowner could potentially incur additional costs. Adam Trombley was very adamant that a municipal planning review does not look at these things in any way, shape, or form. And we had a meeting with the home builders, and he was there just a month or so ago, and he reiterated that point. So.
But the homeowner would have to pay for either process, right?
He's going to pay for it twice now.
I mean, he would either say you're going to do it for nothing if you contact, or the contractor's going to say you own that claim. It doesn't fit.
I guess it depends on who hired the engineer to do it
Yeah.
and review it.
Almost just kind of seems like it's worth a letter to the owner because he's kind of the innocent person in the case.
Once you start that process, where do you stop? I mean, if legal drew a line, it's,
This was one of those things that's why these minutes are 14 pages long. We just went over and over and over the potential problems with the ordinance and the liability and whose fault it is and whose responsibility things are, and ultimately protecting the public. And I think this is one of the things that we were worried about.
Ross, what did you say Adam Trombley adamantly?
The plan review does not look at this, and where that started, where that was really reinforced was, I basically wrote a policy, and the policy was kind of mostly like an internal policy as to how are we going to administer this new program. This brand new program, we've never done it before. We have to come up with our own ways of how we handle these when we come in. And one of the things I threw in there was that when these come in, we were going to have a plan reviewer screen them for completeness. Okay? Because sometimes people will submit calculations that don't even match the job, you know? And so when Adam saw that in the policy, he smacked, oh, you're doing plan review. And so he has since taken that around us back to the municipal attorney saying, no, they cannot do this. This is not allowed by my ordinance. They cannot screen these for completeness. That's plan review. So he is absolutely adamant that plan review did not look at these at all.
That just don't make a lot of sense. And that's why I was confused, because I thought it was in there still.
And we do that, you know, when stuff comes in and we see the obvious stuff, and we tell people.
Yeah.
This was just kind of a really awkward situation.
Well, maybe if you write a letter to Mr. Trombley saying, I didn't notify anyone, but perhaps he'd like to tell the whole. This is a headline.
He wants to get that involved with our policies and our procedures.
Wow.
Could I ask if you think this issue that you're talking about with this deck, is it eventually going to show up in front of this board?
I hope not, there's so much stuff that we resolve, it doesn't get to you guys. We're constantly dealing with problems and keeping them out of the board. And when it reaches that point, we will do everything to keep it out of here. And, Because it's, as you know, the board cannot solve technical problems. That's not really a position. Maybe the 3 structural engineer subcommittee can all sit down and design a fix for this owner or whatever, but I don't think that's really the intent of the building board.
Post report?
We did receive, I guess I can bring this up, we did receive a request for an appeal of the safety factor that we used on our partial height blocking handout. So Sharon's going to be back Monday, so we'll have her take a look at that. And it looks like that will probably go back to the 3-member structural panel.
Have they come up with some new information? Or they just...
No new information in the sense that no new testing, and that was kind of the big issue, was the test samples that we're pulling these ideas from were so small, and hence we want the larger safety factor. Well, what they basically got was a letter from, was it Jay Crandall or whatever, and just kind of his wisdom justifying why the safety factor could be lower.
Board member comments? Anything else then? If not.
You have
Yeah.
the 2013 building board dates. I'll be sending out a notice through Outlook for acceptance. So they'll just be on there as tentative, just so that you guys kind of have a heads up. I will send them out, we cancel them if we don't have anything. The next one is a 3-member panel list of how it shaped out from when we did those. Then you have a new updated list of all the board members and a new staff list.
I have a question.
Ms. Rana?
I have a question with regards to the 3-member panel that was organized prior to the addition of the new board members. And I was wondering if there will be some rearrangement or assignment of members of the 3-member panels to include the new board members.
I guess I'd look to the board to take it upon themselves, and Sharon, yeah. I think the way it's written is the building official and the chair of the board kind of
Correct.
works that out. But, yeah, I mean, the board has new talent that can sit in on the structural panel and whatnot.
Somebody must be on twice, because we got...
Several people are, I think, on twice.
Yes.
I see. Because missing is,
I'm the only one.
what are we, 13 now?
We are 13 now.
So Mr. Hawkinson and Mr. Field.
I missed that meeting.
Okay, get roped in.
Both of those are going to be more architecturally oriented, I would assume. Let's do anybody want to stick their hand up for civil structural, or?
That's a brief explanation of what the three-member panels do.
Yeah, I think the same thing is would.
The field has more additional packet information explaining this,
The three-member board?
the three-member board.
Yeah. This
And you
is.
got it the last time. didn't you?
Okay.
If you don't, I can forward it.
In a nutshell, if there's an appeal, they can go before a three-member board and get a quick presentation, delivery, and decision made. If either party feels, that they don't agree with that decision, they can make an appeal to the board as a whole. So that's kind of the gist of trying to put together the three-member board is a very quick appeal process. Extremely controversial, but we got it, so. It's just a matter of finding a good fit for the two of you to fit in on. I would assume it to be more architecturally oriented than anything else, I assume, with your backgrounds. So maybe that kind of goes into, some kind of a rotation in the first three that are available. We go into that pool and the rotation work through with a different start each time, just to give them the opportunity. Ms. O'Donnell's on both architectural and electrical. Do you want to stay on the architectural or?
I'm happy to stay in either place where needed. Would be a suggestion, and I don't know who needs to put it forth, but that perhaps the two board members would be in places alternates or optional, additional, in case somebody else can't participate.
And that's another great possibility is having floats for all practical purposes to fill in as needed. Anything else? I would care to move to adjourn.
So moved.
Moving second. Thank you, everybody. Travel safe and have a great holiday.
You guys, nothing shows better than to go to assembly meeting. It's so much shorter.
Except for the last three.
Oh, yeah.
It's not nearly as dry.
The last three we have for.
It was interesting, I'm glad to hear that was coming.
I just want to, are you ready to change anything? Nice. Salmons for our word. They're gonna have some different boats and different rigs. Definitely sell different fishing gear. Where's your keynote?
If I could get help with the table to face that way, I would appreciate it.
Oh, I'm saying this is an opportunity to play with significant revisions to